All the locations, as mentioned, are strongholds in which terrorists hibernate. Accordingly, troops neutralized 248 terrorists, arrested 422 suspects, and rescued 163 kidnapped hostages. Troops also recorded 714 terrorist combatants and their families that surrendered in the month of April, and they recovered items during the month include 208 AK-47 rifles, 34 fabricated weapons, 45 den guns, and 18 assorted arms during the month of April. Troops further recovered over 3,600 rounds of 7.62mm special ammunition, over 2,000 rounds of 7.62mm NATO ammunition, and over 400 assorted ammunition of various calibers. Now to the North Central, where we have Operation Safe Haven. During the month of April, troops of Operation Safe Haven conducted operations to several of the hotspots responsible for insecurity in the plateau. Accordingly, troops also had to recalibrate its approach in tackling the security situation by making some changes in troops deployment. Overall, the troops of Operation Safe Haven neutralized 32 violent extremists, arrested 148 suspects, and rescued 35 kidnapped hostages. Troops equally recovered 23 AK-47 rifles, 19 fabricated guns, 93 assorted arms, over 780 rounds of 7.62mm special ammunition, and over 250 assorted ammunition of various calibers. Now to Operation Wild Stroke, which is still within the North Central. The troops of Operation Wild Stroke conducted operations to several strongholds that are hibernating terrorists during the month of April 2024. Troops also had to change tactics in certain instances in order to retain operational effectiveness and operational advantage. For instance, is the temporary withdrawal of troops of FOB Alawa in Niger State. Let me say this: the troops at FOB Alawa and Erena, while on fighting patrols to Karaga village in Shirolo local government area of Niger State, had a encounter with terrorists, and this took place on the 19th of April. Troops fought through the ambush, but sadly, as you all know by now, we lost 2 officers that were killed in action, and 4 of our soldiers were wounded in action in that event. Now, relatedly, on the 23rd of April, troops encountered improvised explosive devices, and this was at Maganda Junction And at that event, 2 soldiers were killed, while 5 others were wounded in action. Now, based on these occurrences, there was a quick need to change tactics in order to maintain the tactical advantage and also in order to have better operational effectiveness. Accordingly, troops in forward operational base Alawa were tactically withdrawn to nearby forward operational base Pandogari. Now, what was responsible for some of this? The muddy terrain as a result of the set-in of the rainy season was partly responsible. It made the ground softer for the adversary to deploy improvised explosive devices, and therefore the need to change tactics and conduct more engaging operations, more effective operations, and retain the tactical advantage. Hence the need to withdraw them to that location. And I must say that withdrawal is temporary. Overall, the troops of Operation Wild Stroke neutralized 60 terrorists, arrested 99 suspects, and rescued 57 kidnapped hostages during the month of April. The troops also recovered 40 AK-47 rifles, 60 assorted arms, 917 rounds of 7.62mm special ammunition, over 890 rounds of 7.62mm NATO, and over 330 assorted ammunitions during the month of April 2024. We can now cross over to the northwest, where we have Operation Hadirin Daji. The troops of Operation Hadirin Daji maintained the momentum against the activities of terrorists hibernating in locations such as Bayanrua, which is like the Sambisa forest of the northeast, as well as other terrorist enclaves within the operational theater of Operation Hadirin Daji. Now, it is no longer news, as some of you have already visited the operational theater and you know this already, that it is no longer news that there is a linkage between illegal mining and acts of terrorism ongoing in the Northwest Operational Theater. The foreign involvement as a result of the illegal mining was established during the just concluded counter-terrorism summit, which was held in Abuja, and also by the utterances by respected voices in the location. They have alluded to this, and it is believed that a regional and probably an international approach to address this situation is incubating. Nevertheless, troops of Operation Hadirin Daji neutralized 297 terrorists, arrested 141 suspects, and rescued 143 kidnapped hostages. Troops also recovered over 180 AK-47 rifles, over 50 fabricated guns, over 70 assorted arms, and over 4,000 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special, as well as over 2,300 rounds of 7.62 millimeter NATO and over 550 assorted ammunitions during the month of April. Still, in the Northwest, let's say a little about Operation Wild Punch. The troops of Operation Wild Punch recorded the following in the month of April 2024. The troops neutralized 31 terrorists, arrested 67 suspects, and rescued 17 kidnapped hostages. The troops equally recovered 20 AK-47 rifles, 28 assorted arms, as well as over 530 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special, over 390 rounds of 7.62 millimeter NATO, and over 1,200 assorted ammunitions of various calibers. Now to the south-south, where we have Operation Delta Safe. The troops of Operation Delta Safe maintained the momentum against the activities of crude oil theft and militants within the area. Troops continued to find and destroy illegal refining sites, as well as arrest the perpetrators of oil theft within the theater. During the month of April, the troops of Operation Delta Safe neutralized 9 violent extremists and arrested 164 persons involved in crude oil theft. Troops also denied the oil theft of over 2.5 million liters of stolen crude oil, over 254,000 liters of illegally refined AGO, as well as over 8,000 liters of PMS and over 1,000 liters of DPK. Furthermore, troops of Operation Delta Safe recovered 56 assorted weapons and destroyed 74 wooden boats, and also recovered over 1,500 assorted ammunitions of various caliber and destroyed 76 illegal refining sites in the month of April. Now, to the last but not the least, Operation Udoka in the southeast. The troops of Operation Udoka recorded the following in the month of April. The troops neutralized 38 terrorists, arrested 103 suspects, and rescued 50 kidnapped hostages in the month of April. Additionally, the troops of Operation Udoka recovered 8 AK-47 rifles, 23 pump-action guns, over 660 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, and over 30 rounds of 7.62 millimeter NATO ammunition. Troops of Operation Udoka further recovered over 220 assorted ammunitions of various calibers and 43 other equipments in the month of April. Now, in summarizing, I would say that the armed forces is building on this momentum against the terrorists. We intend to maintain it in destroying the terrorists and their cohorts all across the various theaters of operation in the country. We are conscious that the stakes are high, and we are not losing sight of the importance of momentum when it comes to fighting such vicious adversaries. The current situation depicts a strain of tactical achievements in degrading the terrorists by dismantling most of the terrorist infrastructure in the Northeast, killing majority of the terrorist combatants, as well as killing a lot of the terrorist senior combatants. It must also be noted that many of the terrorist commanders have been taken off the battlefield. Our operations have suppressed the terrorists. Our operations have prevented them from achieving their strategic objectives. Likewise, our operations have denied the terrorists freedom of action and has disrupted their activities, thereby reducing their effectiveness in many areas. It's for this reason we see them going for soft targets as the cowards that they are. Nevertheless, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to rid the environment of terrorists, and the military is not resting on its oars. At this time, I want to speak briefly about the Tudun Biri incident that occurred in Kaduna State, as the investigation has been concluded. The military has conducted a painstaking investigation into the Tudun Biri incident that occurred in Kaduna State and has initiated disciplinary action against those that we found culpable. Accordingly, the affected personnel are to face a court-martial for acts of omission or commission with respect to the Tudun Biri incident. I'm, however, constrained to speak much about the incident, as it will be adjudged as prejudicial, being a case before a court-martial. However, it must be made clear that the incident was a mistake and the victims of the strike were mistaken for terrorists. On this note, on behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff, General C.J. Musa, officers and personnel of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, our condolences goes out to the families and the loved ones of all those killed in that very sad strike. It is hoped that there will be no more repeat of strikes on non-combatants in our ongoing operations across the country. The military will take extra precaution in the future to ensure that non-combatants are safe. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of today's media review. Thank you. Say this. the days of sit at home is over. You guys have gone to the field and you've seen it. That statement is just mere propaganda. We have decimated that group. We've taken out several of their senior commanders, and several of their combatants have been taken out of the field. And such statements made is just seeking relevance. I assure you that the people of the Southeast have nothing to worry about. We are fully in charge, we are fully in control, and we are there to ensure that these groups can no longer carry out acts of terror on our citizens or even harm them. Thank you. Let's go to the right. Like I already mentioned, the Tudun Biri incident, the investigation has been concluded, and we have found out that the incident shouldn't have taken place in the first place. Now, those responsible are to face a court-martial for their acts of omission or commission as related to the incident. I also mentioned that it will be adjudged as prejudicial if I were to speak more on this case as it is before a court-martial. I'm sure you can understand that. But for the number of personnel involved, there are 2 of them. That's how much I can say. There are 2 of them.